bury the corpse and revive the demon. Hundreds of years ago, in China, there were two powerful sects of witchcraft, the Luban sect and the Maoshan sect. The ancients were often suspicious of these two sects and classified them as evil and heretical sections. And rarely did people belonging to these sects appear in the world. After a while, people even thought that these two sects had disappeared, only remaining in false names. And that the two sects had exhausted their disciples, so they were soon lost. Select reproduction process. However, there are still occasional stories that say that the disciples of these two sects hid in the world, hiding their real identities to carry out the work of exorcism. The number of disciples of the two sects gradually became rarer, and finally by the end of the Qing dynasty, they were no longer known. The Luban sect was passed down from Master Luban, a native of the Lu state during the spring and autumn period. Luban was good at carpentry and manufacturing. Later, when he attained enlightenment, he passed on to his disciples magical charms to ward off evil spirits and carve them into wooden objects. The sect later developed and flourished, and then divided into many branches, but in general, it is still called the Luban sect. The Maoshan sect is different. This sect was founded by Mr. Dao Hongjing in the Maoshan region. This sect also focuses on spells, but tends to bring corpses back to their hometowns, or in other words, the Maoshan sect thrives on turning the dead into zombies and then sticking their own spells on them, letting them return to their hometowns for burial. During the Qing dynasty, this sect also thrived on transporting corpses, because this method was still very convenient. But in the end, both of these sects have gradually disappeared in modern times and their origins are no longer clear. The rumors still continue, and the search for the true successors of these two sects has broken out across Asian countries. They seek the successors of these two sects, each with their own purposes. One is to suppress evil spirits and make the family lineage prosperous. The other is to use such people to destroy their opponents. The true successors of the two sects never get involved in evil karma. After all, if there are any, they are just fish that slip through the net. Out of 10 people who know the trade, only 1 or 2 will sell their identity because of the temptation of money. However, true successors of the two sects, whether good or evil, are very difficult to find. And then there are those who are swindlers and deceivers, who have learned a little bit from the two sects, and beat their chests and claim to be true successors to go around deceiving, pocketing money, and benefiting themselves. In the Tashua area of Baekhyun district, Sunla province, there is a story that tells that hundreds of years ago, there was a Chinese sorcerer who settled in this mountain, claiming to have the profound magic of Maoshan sect, Luban sect and two sects, able to bring the dead back to life and then bury them in a place suitable for the person's karma. Not only was he good at magic and the art of retrieving dead bodies, but he was also very good at feng shui. Under the Tashua abyss, there is a small willow tree. It is said that after the shaman died, he was buried at the base of that willow tree. Eventually, because his corpse was too heavy with death energy, he turned into a zombie. Then his corpse moved automatically and ran north. It is believed that when he died, he cast a spell on himself, so that his corpse could automatically return home after death. As for the small willow tree on his grave, it is also said that it turned into a demon. Later, that willow tree also disappeared, maybe because it turned into a spirit and left on its own, or maybe because someone cut it down. At this point, the old lady stopped talking. The little girl was still listening attentively, swallowing her saliva nervously. She waited and waited, but the old lady did not answer. She finally asked, "Is that all the story? Where did that willow tree go? Is it alive or dead? Is there really a tree in the Tashua abyss near our house?" The old lady nodded, patted her little granddaughter's head and said affectionately, "When I was your age, I also went down to Tashua abyss once. And I also got to admire that tree, but at that time I only dared to stand on the cliff, very far away to look down, and did not dare to get close. Over time, I returned to that place a few times, but that willow tree had already disappeared, my dear." The niece smacked her lips in regret, turned around and stood up. Then she walked towards the back room of the house, went inside, and never came back out again. The old lady smiled, her hands moving quickly. She put firewood into the bottom of the black aluminum pot, so that the fire would have enough wood to burn brightly. Behind the old lady, there was a man about 40 years old, rubbing his hands, looking at the burning fire and thinking for a long time. That man was Mr. Khan, the old lady's eldest son. Mr. Khan seemed to be very interested in the story the old woman had just told. He thought about it over and over again, and his greed arose because he had the idea of getting the wood of the ancient willow tree. He tried to control himself, but still could not help but ask the old woman. "So the story about the willow tree in Tashua Abyss is true, Mom?" The old lady stopped rubbing the firewood, suddenly turned to look at Mr. Khan and calmly said, "Really? In the past, your father used to sit at the base of that tree. That willow tree was very old and very big. The willow was drooping green, and there were few willow trees that lived as long as it did." Mr. Khan's voice trembled and he spoke intermittently. "How big is it, Mom? Is it about 2 or 3 people's size?" The old lady waved her hand and said very seriously, "What do you mean by 3 people hugging it? It's as big as a banyan tree in the countryside." Mr. Khan swallowed and asked, "Can willows be that big, Mom?" The old lady nodded firmly and said, "Of course not, it's already a willow spirit. It's already that big, so what's the point of it getting any bigger? Its longevity is thanks to the corpse of the magician buried there, so it gets to enjoy the blessing. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been struck by lightning several times and died." Mr. Khan thought for a moment, his eyes suddenly lit up, then he quickly turned his head and said to the old lady, "I'm not eating at home tonight, I'm going to my uncle's house. Mom, don't cook for me." Having said that, Mr. Khan quickly stood up, turned around and walked away. The old lady was about to nod, but suddenly she thought of something, and was frightened, shouting loudly to Mr. Khan, "Hey, don't even think about that willow tree. If you touch it, you'll either lose your limbs or your mouth will be twisted, my child. That tree, it's haunted." But the old lady's voice echoed, but there was no response. Mr. Khan must have left in such a hurry that he didn't hear her. The old lady sighed, her limbs were weak and she couldn't move much. She just hoped that Mr. Khan wouldn't have such a foolish idea, then luckily everything would be fine, otherwise. She thought, if Mr. Khan really had that intention, not only would he be doomed, but the fate of the whole old lady's family would also be affected. Even the granddaughter sleeping in the other room would not be able to escape that fate, and would all die because of the Chinese sorcerer's curse. Mr. Duong was busy hammering an iron nail to firmly secure the shaky bed leg, about to cause the whole bed to collapse. Suddenly he heard a loud sound coming from the yard. "Duong, are you home? This is Khan." Mr. Duong turned his head to look outside, suddenly threw the hammer on the ground, then dusted his hands off, stood up straight, walked to the tea table, rubbed his hands on the rag and wiped them over. He took out a teapot and a thermos of hot water, made a pot of tea, and while doing these things, Mr. Duong said, "Yes, come in, I just got home." As soon as Mr. Duong finished speaking, he saw Mr. Khan's figure peeking out the door and entering. Mr. Khan put his hands in his pockets to keep warm and walked leisurely. The winter weather in the northwest is cold and foggy, dust everywhere. The bitter cold makes people just want to sit by the warm fire. But Mr. Khan has to go out in this cold weather, there must be something urgent. Normally, the Northwest people have very few crops in the winter, most of them have stored food from the previous season. So it is really strange that Mr. Khan has to go out in this cold winter weather. Mr. Khan sat down on the bench, quickly picked up the hot cup of tea that Mr. Duong had just made. He picked up the cup of tea, rubbed his hands and cup together, and said, "I have something very important to discuss with you." Mr. Duong took a sip of strong tea, then slowly narrowed his eyes and asked, "What's the matter?" Mr. Khan put the cup of tea back on the table, then clicked his tongue and said, "I heard the old lady say, under Tashua Abyss there is a very old willow tree." Mr. Duong was leisurely, then widened his eyes and asked in an urgent voice, "The old lady said there is a very old willow tree in the Tashua Abyss, right?" Mr. Khan nodded firmly and said, "She said yes, and when she was young she saw it several times." She said the last time she went down to Tashua Abyss she couldn't see the tree anymore, and she even said it must have become a spirit and left. Mr. Duong slapped his thigh and said, "Nonsense, what kind of spirit is a spirit? That ancient willow is very rare. Now let's go down to Tashua Abyss and try it once." Even if people cut it down, they only cut the trunk, but the root is still there. Just that much is enough for people downstream to pay a lot of money. Mr. Khan nodded and smiled in response. "That's why I wanted to come here today to discuss with you. We have to hurry down there and dig up the stump, otherwise if we wait too long, someone will see it and cut it down. If we had that ancient wood, we would have enough money to buy seeds for several seasons without worrying about anything, and then buy a car and build a house." Mr. Duong hurriedly stood up and excitedly said loudly, "Come on, let's go now. I can't stand waiting any longer. If someone sees us, it'll be terrible." Mr. Khan chuckled and replied, "Oh my God, look at him. If it were that easy to cut down, we wouldn't have waited until today to get our turn. We have to figure out how to dig up that stump and prepare our tools carefully." Mr. Duong scratched his head, rubbed his ears and said, "There are times when we get too excited and lose our minds, you're right. Well, let's just take it slow." Mr. Khan shook his head and said, "What does it mean to be slow?" "Slow, but not that slow. Tonight, my uncle and I will go and cut down that tree. I have calculated everything, and I have a plan for the tools. It's just that, although I'm not very superstitious, I still like to choose a good time. The good time to cut down that tree is around 2 in the morning, when the negative energy is less and the air is fresh. The willow tree is full of evil spirits, so we have to choose that time to be okay." Mr. Duong nodded and said, "Whatever you decide, I just need money. I have to buy a motorbike to transport corn conveniently. Next season I won't be forced to pay too much by the merchants, and if anything happens, I can take it straight to the district market to sell the corn." Mr. Khan nodded and replied, "Yes, you are right. But stop dreaming, you have to have wood in your hands to consider it a success. First, you go cook rice wine, we will eat and drink until we are full, then gradually prepare the things. The important thing is the result, but when you have money, you can dream of anything." Mr. Duong was delighted and immediately agreed. He went down to the kitchen to urge his wife, Mrs. Hong, to quickly prepare rice and wine to treat his brother. Then he went up to discuss with Mr. Khan, planning to run around everywhere in the village to borrow tools, only saying that he was going to repair the house. After finishing those things, it was already nighttime. The two of them put on winter clothes to keep out the wind. Then they followed the trail from the village, down to the main road of National Highway 37. Along that asphalt road, they entered the path leading to Tashua. After walking all night, the two were exhausted. Finally, at about 10 o'clock at night, they arrived at the top of Tashua. All that remained was to wait for the right time according to feng shui, then lower the rope to the bottom to find the ancient willow root as the old woman had said. Mr. Khan took out a pack of Vinataba cigarettes, offered Mr. Duong one, and said, "Here, just have a few cigarettes to kill time. I've saved this pack of cigarettes very carefully, only taking them out when they're precious, otherwise I only dare to smoke Du Lich and Tang Long. If we can really cut down that precious tree trunk this time, then we can smoke a whole crate of Venus cigarettes." Mr. Duong was not polite. He immediately reached out and lit a cigarette, blew out white smoke evenly and then said, "I admit, this Venus cigarette is both fragrant and smooth, so enjoyable." Mr. Khan clicked his tongue and said, "Expensive cigarettes should be different, but why are they suddenly twice as expensive?" "You're joking." The two men happily chatted all night long. Finally, the prearranged time that Mr. Khan had mentioned had arrived. At 2 in the morning, the two men immediately began their work, by lowering 2 ropes down the cliff, tying each end of the rope to a barge by the highway, each rope a few meters apart. One person was chosen to go down first to explore, the other stood above shining a flashlight, and at the same time watching the rope. Mr. Khan was of course the first to ask to get off first. Before leaving, he said, I'll go down first to see if the tree stump is still there. If it is, I'll ring the rope to make the bell tied in the middle of the rope ring. Then you just need to slide down the rope to me. While waiting, tie the rope firmly several times, including the spare rope. In case it breaks, there's still another one to climb up. Mr. Khan finished speaking, then slid down the rope, climbed up the cliff, and quickly disappeared into the darkness, so far that Mr. Duong's flashlight could no longer see him. Mr. Duong listened, adjusted the rope to make it tight, then sat there waiting. While waiting, Mr. Duong took out the radio and turned it on to search for the station frequency. The thing is, Mr. Duong has a habit of carrying a radio wherever he goes, and he also has another bad habit of checking the radio whenever he has free time. Even though it is 2 in the morning, the sky is pitch black. No radio station would be broadcasting at this hour, especially not a local station. He thought that habit was just unconscious, just a way to kill time. But unexpectedly, Mr. Duong actually detected it. In the intermittent sizzling sound of the speakers, he could faintly hear a kind of moaning and screaming sound coming from the speakers. The sound was not clear at all, but stopped every beat in an extremely strange way. How interesting, at this hour the station is still broadcasting Kai Luong. Mr. Duong happily shouted, his hands waving wildly, his eyes absent-mindedly forgetting the rope, only paying attention to the radio, forgetting his brother who was groping at the bottom of the cliff. Mr. Khan was different. While his younger brother was enthusiastically listening to the radio above, down here, he was struggling with a bunch of ropes, hanging precariously in the middle of the mountainside. The rope was caught on a cliff halfway up the mountain. If Mr. Duong had paid attention, he would have seen Mr. Khan's bell ringing loudly for help, but that simple thing was blocked by the damn radio. Mr. Khan shouted until his voice was hoarse, but there was no response. Helpless, Mr. Khan had to find a way to save himself. From here to the bottom of the abyss was only about 10 meters. If Mr. Khan was careful, he could climb down by himself without the rope. Then when he could get to the bottom of the abyss, there was another rope that was lowered a few meters away as a backup. Mr. Khan could use that rope to pull himself up. Thinking for a moment, Mr. Khan immediately fumbled to untie the rope knot. His sweat was getting thicker and thicker, the rope knot was getting stiffer and stiffer, and he couldn't untie it. Mr. Khan gritted his teeth and decided to pull out his knife and cut it off. But if he did that, he wouldn't be able to stand firmly and wouldn't have time to hold on to the wall. So he still needed to calculate carefully. "Do you need any help?" Suddenly, Mr. Khan's back tingled, a voice came from the bottom of the abyss. Mr. Khan jumped in surprise, cold sweat soaked his back. It was already 2 o'clock in the morning. In this deserted place, normally there would be no one in the daytime. But at this moment, a voice came from the bottom of the abyss. How could Mr. Khan not be startled? The old lady had told many times that there were many ghosts in the Ta Shua abyss. Demons gathered in groups, they died because they were guided by goblins, or because of accidents on the road above, falling down the pass and dying and turning into ghosts. Mr. Khan normally did not believe it, but the sound just now scared him out of his wits. The question automatically rang in his head, could it be that there really were ghosts? Mr. Khan tried to suppress his fear, shouting loudly to overcome his fear. "Who is that? Who is that?" There was no response from below, only the silence of the mountains and forests, the chirping of insects and the rustling of leaves, creating rustling sounds and an eerie harmony. Mr. Khan shouted several times, but there was no response. He had to try very hard to keep his eyes on the rope. But he suddenly became speechless, because the difficult bottleneck had been untied. After that bottleneck, the remaining knots could be easily and safely untied. Thinking about it felt a bit confusing, but Mr. Khan still used his hands to quickly remove the rope. Then he grabbed the rock wall and patiently climbed down the cliff. Although he felt a little scared, the dream of wealth still had a great influence, urging Mr. Khan to disregard everything and rush towards the bottom of Ta Shua abyss. Mr. Khan's feet landed on the ground. The bottom of the cliff was full of bumpy rocks. His feet hit the rubble, making contact with the rock surface with a cracking sound. The scene was pitch black, with a faint light from a crescent moon shining in the distance. In the dim light, dense bushes obscured the view. The edge of the abyss was too far from the bottom. Although Mr. Khan strained his ears to listen carefully, he could not hear any sound. Just as he was feeling a little lost since he had just arrived here, a chill immediately ran down his spine. It seemed like something had just passed by his right side, like a ghost. A giggle, not really, more like the sound of leaves rustling in the wind. Mr. Khan tried to take a deep breath to gain courage, then quickly grabbed the flashlight and shined it in front of him, starting to feel his way step by step. He used the knife to cut away the leaves and dust that obscured his vision. His steps were steady, occasionally he missed and fell into a deep pothole. Mr. Khan was unsteady, trying to steady himself, then started to follow the straight path that had formed itself to search for the ancient willow tree. On the edge of the Tashua abyss, Mr. Duong was complacently tuning the radio to make sure the sound he had just caught was clear, smooth and sharp. But the more he searched, the more he frowned, because he had clearly heard the sound at that exact frequency just now, but now when he adjusted it over and over again, it was gone. The smile on Mr. Duong's lips disappeared. Suddenly he saw two ropes tied to a barge by the roadside and was startled and cried out. "Oh my God, Khan!" Panicking, he quickly threw the cassette player aside and ran like the wind to the edge of the cliff. The two ropes had broken at some point. Looking down through the flashlight, he discovered that the broken pieces of rope had fallen into the crevice of the rock, caught in the bushes growing on the cliff and were tightly wrapped around them. Those tight knots were only temporary. If Mr. Khan had not known this and had continued climbing the rope, he would have only climbed halfway and the part of the rope that was caught on the tree branch would have come loose, and at that time, Mr. Khan would have undoubtedly fallen to his death. Mr. Duong was very worried, hoping that his brother would not find the willow tree so quickly and accidentally climb up the rope. Mr. Duong tried his best to call out loudly down the abyss to warn Mr. Khan, but there was still no response. He was at a loss and had no choice but to turn around and run back to the village, wanting someone to come and help him. Along the way, Mr. Duong staggered and crashed into bushes several times, causing him to lose consciousness. He was panting heavily, his shirt soaked in sweat. His clothes were torn and tattered. As soon as Mr. Duong left, a strange sound came from the cassette player that had fallen to the ground. The radio's hissing gradually gained rhythm and was vaguely like a shrill, cackling sound, echoing down the cliff, all the way to the bottom of the abyss. Mr. Khan was pushing aside the grass and weeds blocking the path to feel his way, when he suddenly heard that strange laughter. The radio sound coming down here was no longer clearly laughter, but only a strange, eerie sound. However, just that sound alone was enough to make Mr. Khan fall to his knees, shivering. The night sky was cold and desolate, the dense forest surrounded here, plus that kind of sound, even the bravest person would be scared to the point of peeing their pants. Mr. Khan regained his composure, stopped brushing away the branches, and tried to listen to what the strange sound that had just come from was. But no matter how hard he listened, he could not find any sound that he had heard or known before. Then suddenly the sound stopped. Mr. Khan listened carefully but could not hear anything else. He sighed and continued walking. His arm pushed aside a thicket of bushes, revealing a large patch of land that stretched far into the distance. As soon as he pushed aside the bushes, he was immediately startled and speechless, because only about 10 meters away from him, a very familiar figure appeared. That person was Mr. Duong, his younger brother. Duong, I. Mr. Khan was speechless, because it was clear that Mr. Duong was on the edge of the cliff, and somehow he appeared here now. Mr. Khan had come down here 10 minutes earlier, and all along the way he could only go straight. Even if Mr. Khan ran as fast as he could, and climbed up as fast as he could, he still could not be here at this moment. The figure had its back to Mr. Khan, although he couldn't see clearly who it was. But looking at the figure in clothes, Mr. Khan immediately determined that it was exactly Mr. Duong. No matter how Mr. Khan stuttered, the figure did not turn around or respond. Mr. Khan regained his composure, wiped away a few drops of sweat from his forehead, and mustered up all his courage to walk towards the other person. His flashlight shone brightly, and he strained his eyes to see clearly. The closer he got, the more certain he was that the figure was none other than Mr. Duong. Because when Mr. Duong was a child, he was bitten by a poisonous snake in the forest and had to amputate an index finger on his right hand. And the person standing before him, besides the same clothes, height, and hair, there was no mistaking that his index finger had also been amputated. Mr. Khan blinked his eyes several times, getting closer and closer. Then suddenly his eyes blurred for a moment. He tried to squint, and saw that the figure standing still just now was just a bush. Mr. Khan breathed a sigh of relief and cursed himself. It turned out that he had been seeing things for himself. It was the bush that from afar he had thought was Mr. Duong. But why did he feel that the image of the clothes, the hair, the severed fingers were so clear and real? Mr. Khan shook his head, then continued walking on his journey to find the ancient willow tree. Along the way, he was startled many times by strange images. The shadow of Mr. Duong, the old lady, and his daughter appeared one after another, causing him to panic many times. His heart was burning like fire, his intestines churning, restless. Mr. Khan remained in a state of flux for an hour, then the patch of land occasionally interspersed with bushes disappeared. Instead, a large, long piece of land appeared before his eyes. This piece of land had no growth whatsoever, except for a giant tree that was as big as 10 people's embraces, growing there. The entire sky here was covered with dark clouds, no wind blew through here. No grass grew. The only light emitted from the flashlight that Mr. Khan brought with him, illuminating the entire area. He was slightly happy, walking closer and closer to the willow tree, when suddenly he felt like he was having trouble breathing, as if a noose was being threaded deeper into his neck. He was startled and stepped back, but the feeling disappeared. He touched his neck to regain his composure, the feeling of the noose still lingering around him. Mr. Khan squinted his eyes, looked at the willow tree, and observed its huge, dense canopy. He immediately realized an unbelievable truth. This willow tree unexpectedly had leaves that were not green, but a strange mixture of black and red. The leaves swayed heavily, occasionally a few drooping willow branches shook violently as if someone was sitting on the branch, hidden behind the swaying stone leaves, causing the branches to shake as if a strong wind was blowing. Mr. Duong wiped his sweat, fearfully trying to swallow it back. Then he muttered to himself. Okay, the important thing is to confirm that this willow tree is real. Now I have to go back and call Uncle Duong down here. Thinking for a moment, Mr. Khan turned his head and quickly returned to the cliff to climb up there to tell Mr. Duong. During the hour that Mr. Khan was struggling in the abyss, Mr. Duong had returned to the village and informed everyone in the village about Mr. Khan's danger. This alerted the entire village, even Mr. Khan's mother heard the news. The old woman followed the group of people that night straight to Tashua Abyss to save her child. Torches were burning brightly throughout the village, and dogs were barking loudly. The children in the village who were sleeping soundly woke up and cried because of the loud noise. The village youth cheered, the old and the children stayed at home, only the strong men were allowed to follow Mr. Duong to save people. Mr. Khan's mother had just agreed to go, but later she insisted on going, so everyone had to give in. There was no other way. On the way to Tashua Abyss, the villagers poured onto the national highway, blocking a section of the road. They marched straight ahead in a group, occasionally coming across a truck that had to stop for a moment to let the group pass before they could continue. When he reached the edge of the Tashua Abyss, the radio was still making a sizzling sound on the ground. Mr. Duong ran to pick up the radio and put it in the cloth bag he was wearing, then looked down at the edge of the abyss. Strangely enough, the rope that had broken and was stuck in the crevice of the rock was now neatly reattached as if it had never broken before. The old lady crept to the edge of the cliff. With her experience as an old woman, she looked at the rope and seemed to guess something. She said loudly, "Who is still a virgin, put a pile of shit on this rope for me to see." As soon as the old lady finished speaking, a few young volunteers ran over and urinated right on the two ropes hanging precariously near the barge at the edge of the cliff. As soon as the urine fell, the string suddenly turned pitch black, with traces of fingers and hands clinging to it in some places. Immediately, the entire group saw that scene, everyone's faces turned pale. Mr. Duong ran up to the old lady and hurriedly asked. "What does that mean, Mom?" The old lady whispered. "I warned him but he wouldn't listen. You guys went to that willow tree, so this isn't strange at all." The old lady paused for a moment, then pointed at the rope and continued. "That handprint was woven by a ghost. No human could have woven that string. In the past, blind ghosts and guiding spirits all looked normal, but when they came into contact with urine, you could tell right away whether it was really made by that creature or not. Looking at this string, I'm afraid something bad happened to me down there," Mr. Duong said, sweating. "So what should we do now, Mom?" The old lady said. "Now everyone must go down there. If there are many people, we might be able to suppress the negative energy. If we find him quickly, we can still keep Khan alive, otherwise we can only collect his body." After hearing this, Mr. Duong's hands and feet trembled so much that he could no longer control himself. He quickly called some young men from the village and urged them to quickly lower the rope and climb down the cliff to find him. The whole group believed the old woman's words and hurriedly took turns climbing down to the bottom of the cliff. The old lady stood at the edge of the cliff and carefully instructed everyone. "When you get there, everyone must stay close together, no one is allowed to separate. If you get separated, you must shout and call out immediately, otherwise it will be very dangerous, you will be blinded by ghosts, led by demons. If you can't find it when it's light, you must return immediately, otherwise you will be tricked by ghosts into their demon cave and won't be able to return." The old lady also gave strict instructions that if a girl suddenly appeared in a deserted place, one must immediately suspect that it was a willow demon, and try to avoid the detour so that it would not discover them. Otherwise, once it discovered them, it would disappear, then transform into a person like the group and blend in with the group to deceive each person, then take them to a deserted place to kill them. Everyone said yes, yes, yes. They listened to the old lady very carefully. A few people were carefully assigned to wait at the edge of the cliff to watch the rope. The old lady also stood at the edge of the cliff waiting for news from Mr. Khan. She was old this year, no longer strong enough to follow the group down the cliff. Mr. Duong led the group, just slid down the cliff and encountered a gloomy and creepy scene. Groups of will-o'-the-wisp lights flickered as if beckoning. There was the sound of the wind rustling through the bushes, creating a sound like the spirits of ghosts and demons were talking. The group of young people in the village, who had been full of enthusiasm at first, were now trembling like leaves. A young man hurriedly ran up to Mr. Duong with his face ashen and whispered in his ear. "Uncle Duong, I think I heard Uncle Khan's voice just now." Mr. Duong was in a hurry, so he happily asked. "Where?" The young man said. "Right on the cliff, but I just climbed down and didn't see anyone. But just now I clearly heard him calling from the cliff. He even called my name clearly." Mr. Duong immediately said. "Nonsense, you're so scared." The whole group didn't see anything when they got down. They hadn't even taken a few steps and were already scared shitless by the ghost. "What's the point of doing anything? Are you afraid of ghosts?" The young man was scolded by Mr. Duong for a while, as if he had been hit in the heart, and started sweating. However, to save face, he still stood up straight and patted his chest, saying, "No way, uncle. I must have misheard just now. I will pay more attention." Mr. Duong nodded and said, "Okay, it's normal to mishear. Even I just got down here and I want to climb up with a rope, let alone you guys. Okay, let's go quickly and find my brother, or we won't be able to get back by morning." Mr. Duong finished speaking, hurriedly pushed aside the bushes, the leaves rustled, sometimes the wind blew through, making the leaves brush against his face like someone's hand was caressing his face. The group of young men following Mr. Duong had more than 10 people, exactly 14 people, including Mr. Duong, a total of 15 people participating in the journey to rescue Mr. Khan. Mr. Duong was the oldest, all of whom had wives and children, while these young men were all young adults. They had no wives or children, not even lovers. At first, the young men were very scared. However, the further they went, the deeper they went into the valley. The more they outnumbered them, the more they began to boldly tease each other. Hearing the old woman tell the story of the willow demon transforming into a girl, everyone was very happy. In their lives, they rarely had contact with young girls, because strangely, their village was mostly full of boys. Boys who wanted to find a wife had to go to other villages to find a wife. They also heard that the goblins that transformed into human form were very beautiful. Some even thought that if they could be close to a goblin just once in their life, they would die. Those jokes were just a sideline. But later on, unexpectedly, those jokes turned out to be true. The young man who said those words was the first person to discover the willow demon. The group had been walking for a long time and were tired, so a few people separated to the stream to get water. Among them, there was that young man. At first, the stream was deserted and there was nothing. But finally, the group of 4 people who went to get water for the whole group was suddenly hit by a strong wind, causing dust to fly everywhere, and leaves to hit their faces and fly everywhere. After the wind stopped blowing, the young man was nowhere to be seen. People only saw his tattered clothes scattered on the ground. Some people saw the silhouette of a girl's back undulating, appearing and disappearing from the other side of the stream, behind the thorny bushes. When the 3 of them returned to inform the group, and returned to look for him, they only found the young man's 2 sandals and a bunch of tree roots covered in dirt. But the man was nowhere to be seen. The group searched for a while without finding anything, so they finally gave up. They told each other to be more careful from now on, because the willow demon might have really appeared. The group continued their journey to search for Mr. Khan, until almost dawn without finding any more news. They decided to give up. Everyone was about to turn back. Just then, they accidentally got lost in a long stretch of land, completely bare of rocks and stones, with nothing growing. In the middle of that land appeared a very large willow tree. Its leaves were a mixture of black and red. The whole group looked at each other, speechless. At this moment, Mr. Duong's eyes suddenly showed a calculating look. He stared at the big willow tree and licked his lips. He suddenly decided that if he could not find Mr. Khan, then he would have to cut down this willow tree to make a profit. Along the way, for self-defense, he brought every tool he needed to cut trees. At first he was worried about his brother, but later on, his greed grew and he leaned more towards cutting willows. So, on the way, Mr. Duong repeatedly pumped the idea of cutting down willows to sell to the young people. The young people at that time did not care much about money, but Mr. Duong pumped that if each person owned a piece of willow wood, then later on, they would often dream of beautiful girls. They would also get a beautiful wife because they shared the gospel. Those deceitful words quickly overshadowed the old woman's warnings. Just when everyone was feeling discouraged and wanted to go back, this willow tree, as if possessed by a demon, appeared right in front of them. The group was very happy. Mr. Duong first stabbed the sharp knife into the ground and loudly shouted, "Cut it down, for the sake of our own wealth. For revenge for my brother and your friends." The young people shouted in response, "Cut it down, get rich, get revenge." Mixed in with the loud, spirited shouts, there were occasionally a few soft words. "Because I got a beautiful wife." The group of men, with knives and hammers in their hands, rushed towards the tree. The willow branches, all covered with red and black leaves, shook as if inviting them with delight. Mr. Duong rushed forward aggressively. The closer the group got to the willow tree, the more suffocating and difficult it was to breathe. But in the end, no one was afraid of death. The first blows of the hammer were brought down, making a cracking sound as if cutting into flesh. The sticky sap squirted out a bright red color. The rustling of the leaves made sounds like a girl sobbing. Back to Mr. Khan. After he discovered the ancient willow tree, he immediately returned to the village. Along the way, he did not encounter anything strange. Until he returned to the cliff, Mr. Khan could immediately see that the rope that had been hanging precariously on the cliff had been tightly connected. It was tied back up above. The rope was so strong that it seemed like it had never slipped. Mr. Khan muttered, "This Duong guy is really good. When I need him, he's nowhere to be found. When I don't need him, he automatically runs down to pick up the rope and tie it up for me." How strange. Mr. Khan followed the securely tied rope, grabbed it and started climbing very slowly. The rope swung back and forth, making crackling sounds because of the weight of the person on it. Approaching the edge of the cliff, the rope gradually turned pitch black. Handprints gradually appeared. Mr. Khan squinted his eyes to look closely and saw that the handprint was firmly embedded in the rope, leaving a deep scar about a centimeter deep. The closer to the edge of the abyss, the denser the handprints became. The handprints were small like those of a girl, the fingers were slender, some convex, some concave, some shallow, some deep, as if the hand had grabbed something. Imagine a rotten hand with a chunk of flesh missing, leaving only bones, and the flesh and bones were intermittently clinging to the rope, to create such a trace. The handprints were spaced about half a meter apart. There was also a bit of sweat on the rope from time to time. The traces proved that someone had climbed down the rope just now. And with so much sweat, it was even more obvious that it couldn't have been one person, but rather a group of people. Mr. Khan frowned. It was impossible that Mr. Duong saw that he did not go back up, only then discovered that the rope was broken, so he turned back to the village to call for people. And those people had just returned and climbed down the cliff to find him? Looking at the traces on the rope, Mr. Khan was sure that his guess was correct. He intended to continue climbing, because the distance between him and the edge of the abyss was only about a meter. He would rest for a while up there, then wait for the group of people to return to see what happened. Or at least return to the village to ask for news to see if his deduction was correct or not. Then immediately after that, he was startled, his hand almost let go of the rope and fell into the abyss. What caught his eyes was a fleshy corpse, all red with blood, revealing the veins in the flesh. To be more precise, that corpse had been skinned, and moreover, it had been skinned all over. The strange thing here was that even though the skin had been skinned, it could be seen that the corpse was still wearing clothes. Through the appearance of that outfit, Mr. Khan was even more terrified because the person he thought of was someone from his village. He tried to suppress his fear and continued to crawl up the cliff. Once again, Mr. Khan was terrified, because on the edge of the Tashua cliff, there were two more bodies that looked exactly like this one. Some corpses had their teeth broken off, some had their tongues gouged out. Their deaths were so horrible that he couldn't imagine what had happened. Why were there these dead people? Could these people have been the ones assigned to stay behind to guard the rope to avoid any trouble? But why did they die so tragically and horribly? Such a horrifying death. Could it be that willow ghosts really existed? Mr. Khan nodded in agreement, because there was no willow tree species that had leaves mixed with black and red, and they also glowed, which was truly strange. Looking at the appearance of the corpses, if it wasn't done by a demon, how could the corpses be skinned so delicately and meticulously? Only a demon could do such things. Putting aside all thoughts, Mr. Khan felt that the most necessary thing right now was to return to the village to call for help. Then conveniently find out what had happened. Thinking to himself, Mr. Khan followed Highway 37 and started to return to his village. When he arrived at the village, he saw that the whole village had lit up. It showed that something had happened that day, causing the whole village to wake up at the same time. Mr. Khan hurriedly ran into the nearest house, intending to ask for news about the people who had come to the Tashua cliff. But as soon as he entered the house, the same horrifying scene appeared again. All the people in this house had been skinned, but still wearing their clothes. Their condition was exactly like the corpses that had died at the edge of the cliff. Running past a few more houses, Mr. Khan saw the same situation happening. People like children and the elderly were a little better, because only the skin on their faces was peeled off. But most of the middle-aged and elderly people had their skin peeled off completely, leaving no trace. Mr. Khan was terrified, suddenly thinking of his daughter. What would happen to her if the same thing happened? After Mr. Khan's wife died, his daughter Thuong was the only person left for him to rely on in his old age. In that house, there was the old lady. He and Thuong River relied on each other. Now that this happened, Mr. Khan was worried about the old lady, and even more worried about the safety of his daughter. He ran like the wind towards the house on the hilltop at the end of the village. When he arrived, he saw that the house was closed and the lights were not lit like the other houses. The whole house was pitch black, with a dim light in the corner of the kitchen. The stove was flickering with crackling sounds. In the corner of the house, Mr. Khan suddenly saw the figure of an old woman. She sat there, motionless, like a lifeless body. Mr. Khan suddenly asked, "Mom, are you okay?" The old woman's shadow did not answer, but just stood there like a lifeless body. The old woman shook her head as if nothing had happened. Mr. Khan breathed a sigh of relief, then tiptoed into the bedroom. Looking at the bed in the corner of the room, he saw his daughter Thuong still sleeping soundly as if nothing had happened. Mr. Khan was very happy. He immediately turned back and said to the old lady, "Don't go anywhere tonight, stay home and watch the baby carefully for me. I have to go to the commune right away." Mr. Khan hid what happened from the whole village, because he was afraid that the old lady would not be able to bear it anymore. Then that same night, he went down to the national highway and walked to the commune headquarters. Baekhyun district is so large that it takes dozens of kilometers to get from the village to the commune. Mr. Khan had to walk for several hours to get to the commune headquarters. When he arrived, it was just dawn. Mr. Khan waited for another hour or two before the commune officials arrived to work. He quickly reported the incident that had happened to his entire village to the commune police chief. The head of the commune police at that time was Mr. Pao. As soon as Mr. Pao saw Mr. Khan covered in sweat and his face pale, he immediately asked, "Hey man, if something happens, report it quickly." Mr. Khan swallowed, finally forced himself to speak and recounted everything that happened last night in detail. Mr. Duong urged the young men to quickly cut down the willow tree and bring it back. The sap of this willow tree was bright red like blood, and when sprayed on people's faces, it tasted salty. Mr. Duong was the most active person, each cut was deep, the young man with less strength could not cut as well. But perhaps because he was chopping so vigorously, Mr. Duong did not notice. Around him, the sound of the hammer and knife gradually became smaller and then disappeared completely. When Mr. Duong took a break, he turned around and saw no one there. He turned around and called out to the young men. But he called and called but no one answered. Angry, Mr. Duong cursed and said, "Damn, you brats, you peed your pants and ran away before even seeing a ghost. Then let me chop it down and enjoy it. When the time comes, don't even open your mouth to ask for a share." Mr. Duong turned around and swung his knife at the tree trunk with all his might, without even looking. Pop! But then his cat knife hit something like meat, and hot liquid spurted out and splashed all over Mr. Duong's face. Mr. Duong cursed again. Damn, why is this sap so hot? The liquid smelled exactly like resin, and was red like blood. Mr. Duong rubbed his eyes to thoroughly wipe away the liquid that had stuck to them, then squinted his eyes to look closely, intending to continue cutting. But then he immediately exclaimed, "Oh my God!" What Mr. Duong saw was a very strange scene. 13 young men appeared before him at the same time. They were chopped into many pieces, their heads were cut off and hung from willow trees. Knives and axes were in different parts of each arm, their bodies were chopped into many pieces, their hands and bodies seemed to be aimed at each other. Mr. Duong was terrified, he quickly threw the knife on the ground and turned to run for his life. He had really encountered a real ghost. When he looked at the willow tree, Mr. Duong discovered that the trunk was not damaged at all. Even the deep-cut marks that Mr. Duong had previously boasted about to the young men were nowhere to be seen. On the contrary, Mr. Duong saw the corpses in front of him were cut deeply. He imagined that the cut marks were similar to the ones he saw when he cut into the tree trunk. A terrible truth appeared in his mind, a blurred image, but as he became conscious he gradually remembered. Each terrifying scene gradually appeared in Mr. Duong's memory. The young men then rushed towards the tree, swinging their axes with great force. But unexpectedly, they were hypnotized. The axes were not aimed at the tree, but suddenly turned towards their comrades beside them and chopped down. Some people woke up in a daze from fear, but the knife had already cut halfway down their necks. Some people, after being hacked to death, couldn't believe how their heads had suddenly separated from their necks. The person who woke up and saw his comrade slashing at him screamed miserably. But the people who were slashing with magic knives did not stop, as excited and happy as when Mr. Duong was agitated. The man whose arm was cut off woke up and knelt down, begging and pleading, waving his other hand and screaming. Then the next knife slash also came and cut off the arm. The other man screamed in pain. Before he could say anything, the knife slashed again, the hand and arm were gradually cut off. Finally, the legs were chopped off, then half of the body was cut in half. Finally, when only the head was left, barely breathing, and hung from the neck, Mr. Duong remembered the whole process of those people being chopped alive, piece by piece, extremely disgusting. Finally, 2 or 3 young men remained. After killing all their comrades, they took turns putting their knives to their own necks and cutting off their heads. The last survivor, Mr. Duong, took turns hanging each person's head and body parts on a tree. During the process of killing and dismembering people, Mr. Duong was the most enthusiastic. Many of the blood-splattered and smooth slashes were his. Mr. Duong was horrified thinking about that scene, and immediately understood the reason why they all had such a horrible death. It was all because of the willow demon. He turned around and ran towards the edge of the cliff. Suddenly, the radio started playing from the cloth bag he was carrying on his back. It was obvious that Mr. Duong had not turned on the radio, but why did the radio turn on by itself? A strange sound immediately appeared, a moaning sound like a girl crying, just like when he was listening to the radio on the edge of Ta Shua Abyss. Mr. Duong ran for his life. The harder he ran, the louder the sound became. Then the shadow of a girl sitting dejectedly in a bush by the roadside kept appearing and chasing him. She kept sobbing as if she wanted him to give her life back. Running to the foot of the cliff, Mr. Duong saw a mess of flesh and blood, and as soon as he caught a glimpse of that figure, he immediately recognized who it was. Mr. Duong screamed so loudly that his voice was nauseating. "Mom!" The old woman fell from the edge of the cliff. Her head was smashed into a pile of shredded flesh, only her bruised body remained intact. Mr. Duong hugged the old woman's body and screamed, but after a while, his back was cold. Only half a meter away from him, the vague figure of a girl suddenly appeared. Her face was pale and her features were unclear. Her long, disheveled hair was covered with dust. She appeared and disappeared in the mist and bushes, laughing with savage giggles. Mr. Duong immediately turned around, desperately grabbed the rope and climbed up. He climbed like crazy. When he turned back he saw the demon also starting to grab the rope, starting to climb up chasing him. Mr. Duong shouted, "Go away! Go away now!" Then, as he climbed and cried, he closed his eyes and climbed, plunging forward. But then suddenly his head hit something, slimy and rotten, a soft, fleshy thing dangling against his head. Mr. Duong raised his head to look. His face suddenly turned purple. His hand suddenly let go, his whole body fell down powerlessly. A noose was inserted deep into his neck, tightening his neck, strangling him to death. Mr. Duong's body hung precariously on the cliff, swaying in the wind. 10 years later, the story of an entire village in Baekhyun district dying due to demons had gradually subsided and no one mentioned it again. However, at this time, a Mercedes-Benz truck suddenly appeared, speeding along Highway 37. Running along the old village. The car stopped at the foot of a dirt road. A man got out of the car. This man looked very old, his eyes were sunken, he wore dark glasses and a black hat. Following him was an extremely beautiful young girl. The man walked towards Mr. Khan's house, which was the only house with survivors in this village. After what happened that year, Mr. Khan did not leave, but remained in this place. The man entered the house and saw only a young girl busily picking up rice. That young girl was the little girl Thuong from 10 years ago, now grown up. Thuong saw the stranger and stood up to ask, "Who are you looking for?" The man started talking for a while. It turned out he was Chinese, and the girl next to him was the interpreter. The girl interpreter immediately introduced and said, "This is Mr. Liu, he's visiting from Shanghai. He wants to see your father." "Where is your father?" Thuong honestly replied. My dad is in the room, let me go call him. As Thuong was about to turn back into the house, a voice echoed out. No need to call. You guys go home and leave my family alone. I don't want to be in the newspaper anymore. The female interpreter smiled and spoke into the room to explain. Sir, Mr. Lu here is a person who studies ancient rituals. He is not a journalist, he can pay you a lot of money to ask about this. Mr. Khan lazily walked out of the house. If they weren't journalists, and they could give him money, then of course he would entertain them. Mr. Khan invited the two of them into the house, along with the driver. He invited them to sit down, poured them tea thoughtfully, and then asked. Okay, if you have any questions, just ask. The man called Mr. Lu was about to say something when he suddenly frowned. Suddenly he asked in a Chinese tone. The female interpreter quickly said. Mr. Lu said. Your house seems to be haunted. Mr. Khan said loudly. Yes, there is no devil, it is the devil who killed this whole village. Mr. Lu smiled faintly and spoke for a while. The female interpreter asked again. Do you want to know the details about this demon? Mr. Khan seemed not to care much at first, but when he saw the girl mention this issue, he became interested and quickly nodded. Mr. Lu immediately took off his glasses, revealing a deep-set eye without a pupil. Mr. Khan was a little startled, but Mr. Lu pointed at his eye and affirmed that his eye was like that because of a ghost. Mr. Lu said that the willow ghost was created by Lu Banzong Shu. It was because he buried a girl alive under a willow tree, at the same time as the great master Lu Banzong Shu died and was buried under the tree. Regarding the story of the Chinese magician in this area, who turned into a zombie and ran back to the north, Mr. Lu admitted that it was true. However, this person was a traitor of Lu Banzong Shu, and founded a branch called Lu Banzong Ti Sin Kui. He wanted to use ghosts to revive himself after death. This spell uses a girl as the talisman's body, draws it on cinnabar ink, and buries it alive under a willow tree. Then, 13 young boys are captured and fed 7 times. At that time, the Lu Banzong Ti Sin Kui technique will be effective, reviving the body of the girl buried under the willow tree, and the soul of the great master Lu Banzong Shu will enter and live again. Mr. Lu said that the willow ghost had eaten it 6 times. If it ate it again, the corpse ghost would come back to life. At that time, the disaster would be unimaginable. Mr. Lu only learned about this 6 months ago when he accidentally surfed the internet. When he discovered this, he immediately made a trip to Vietnam to prevent the willow demon from resurrecting. After asking Mr. Khan a few questions, Mr. Lu immediately mentioned an idea. I came here this time to first dispel the evil karma, and secondly to find a successor. Only those who are influenced by the Luban sect technique, and are reborn from the 9th death, can have the ability to become a disciple of the Luban sect technique. Mr. Lu finished speaking and then looked towards Mr. Khan's daughter Thuong. Mr. Khan hesitated for a moment, then nodded as if he understood and said. If you can help him, that would be great. I just want to find my brother's body and bring him back to bury him. To be honest, he's been missing down there for 10 years now, life or death unknown, but no one else dares to go down that abyss to find those 15 people. Mr. Lu nodded and said. Not alive, I immediately guessed from the article I read that all 15 of them were dead. Your brother, who was married, probably died differently, but the other 13 must have died exactly the same way. Mr. Khan looked confused and asked. 13 people died the same way? But this version had 14 young men missing at that time? Mr. Lu also frowned and said in confusion. This is really not normal. If there were 14 people, then the remaining person should still be alive. Mr. Lu sighed, shook his head, and continued. Okay, let's put that aside for now. But first, the next important thing is to get rid of the evil spirit in this house. I see, you've been able to live with the evil spirit for 10 years, you're really good. Living with the devil? Mr. Khan asked strangely. Mr. Lu nodded and smiled. Yes. I have a question, where's your old lady? Mr. Khan exclaimed. I don't know, the old lady has been very strange since the incident happened that year. She went out early in the morning and then disappeared, only coming back late at night. Mr. Lu smiled and said, "Don't you find it strange that she hasn't aged a bit in 10 years?" Mr. Khan heard this and immediately widened his eyes, showing disbelief and stammering. "What do you mean? Is it possible that the old lady is a ghost?" Mr. Lu nodded and said, "Yes, the old lady is not only a ghost, but also a messenger of the Willow Ghost. She just wants to wait to kill the other two." Mr. Lu finished speaking, and was translated. Mr. Khan asked, "She wanted to kill us? But why didn't she do it all these years?" Mr. Lu replied, "Because she wanted to wait for the right moment." Mr. Khan asked again, "When is the right time?" Mr. Lu said, "When the time comes for the demon Willow to revive, she will be the ideal body for him to refine into the next puppet." You still want to ask why there is a need to refine the next puppet? Then let me explain. Mr. Lu said that when the Willow Ghost was resurrected and the body of the Grandmaster of the Luban sect entered it, that body was just like a normal person, it could not be immortal like a zombie's body. Therefore, he needed another body to cultivate into the next puppet. When the Willow Ghost's current body could no longer be used, he would be reborn and enter the body that had been refined into a puppet prepared in advance. In this way he could live forever. Mr. Khan said in fear. "So how many people will have to die?" Mr. Lu nodded and said, "That's right, I said it was really an unpredictable disaster." Mr. Khan knew that his and his daughter's lives were hanging by a thread, so he was extremely frightened. He hoped that Mr. Lu would find a way to save them. Mr. Lu immediately explained that this was actually a curse from Lu Ban Tong Thuot. It explained why Mr. Khan's village had so few daughters, because this place had been suppressed by a curse, making it difficult for the Yin energy to flourish, so that all the Yin energy could be sucked back into the Ta Shua abyss to nourish the Willow Ghost's body. The only way to solve the curse from Lu Ban Tong Thuot was to call the body of the great master of Lu Ban Tong Thuot who had fled to the north, return to his old place and capture the soul that was suppressed in the Willow Ghost's flesh, and put it back into the zombie's body. Then burn both his body and soul, only then would this curse be solved. And only then could Mr. Khan's life and that of his daughter be saved. It would also prevent the great master of Lu Ban Tong Thuot from killing people for the purpose of refining puppets. After Mr. Lu finished telling the story, he expressed his intention to stay at Mr. Khan's house for a while to prepare. He would ask one of his masters, and with his ability, call the zombie back. From then on, the two of them would join forces to capture the zombie, burning both its bones and soul. Mr. Lu emphasized, "This is a zombie that died hundreds of years ago, so it's very strong. If we weren't careful, my teacher and I would have been beaten to death by it. That's why we have to prepare as carefully as possible." Mr. Lu finished speaking, then raised his head to look at the sky, then sighed and continued. "It's getting dark already, I need to return to the hotel to prepare some things. You should also get the house ready. If the old lady's ghost comes back tonight, stick this talisman outside the door, so that the old lady's ghost can't enter the house and harm you and your daughter. The Willow Ghost knows I'm here, so it won't spare you too. I'll be back tomorrow morning." Mr. Lu finished speaking and stood up, placed a talisman on the table, then turned and walked away. Mr. Khan looked at the talisman placed on the table, his hand trembling as he picked it up. From the corner of his eyes, tears slowly flowed down. His voice was a bit hoarse as he said, "Mom, all these years I thought you were still alive, but I never expected." Little Thuong also cried, as if sympathizing with her father. She and her father still met her grandmother every day, every hour, even though they didn't talk, they still had a lot of affection for each other. Seeing her father cry made her even more heartbroken. At night, when the sky is covered by a black strip of cloud, the moon and stars are hidden. Tonight is a gloomy night as usual, and also a night full of injustice. Mr. Khan took the talisman that Mr. Lu left behind and stuck it on the front door of the house when the sun was just setting. When the sky was just getting dark, he and his father crawled into the house, closed the door tightly and refused to come out, just as Mr. Lu had said. And sure enough, just like every other day, it was just getting dark. Mr. Khan could see the figure and the old man slowly walking towards the house. Seeing the old lady's figure still strange, Mr. Khan clasped his hands together, praying that Mr. Lu's words were not true. Because if the old lady could really enter the house, then that proved that she was not dead. And Mr. Lu was ultimately just a liar. But what happened next actually confirmed that Mr. Lu's words were completely true. The old lady had just stepped to the threshold when her entire body stopped. Her entire body was stiff, and her lifeless expression gradually turned angry. Mr. Khan was scared, turned his head away, not daring to look at that scene. It took him a while to regain his composure, intending to turn around and close the window. But alas, the old lady was standing behind the window, her pale, ashen face peering into the house, staring at Mr. Khan. The old lady, who had not said a word for so many years, suddenly spoke, her voice echoing like the wind. "Khan, why did you lock your mother outside? Open the door for me, son." Mr. Khan was startled, turned around and ran into the inner room, shouting, "Are not." He hid his head under the blanket, trembling in fear. Little Thuong ran up from the kitchen and saw the old lady's figure flickering outside the window, terrified. The old lady's voice still echoed softly outside the door. "Honey, open the door for me." Little Thuong saw that her grandmother could speak. On the contrary, she was less afraid, and happily said to her father, "Dad, Grandma is not mute, she is not dead, she can still talk, Dad." Mr. Khan exclaimed, "Dear, please close the window quickly, she is a ghost, she is not human. The talisman stuck outside has revealed everything." The little girl cried and cried, but did not dare to say anything to her father. The old lady stood firmly by the window, and the little girl reached out and closed the window under the old lady's gaze. But only halfway, the little girl suddenly screamed and paled. "Dad, save me!" Because at some point, a pair of purple, dry hands like a dried corpse grabbed Thuong's hand tightly, making it impossible for her to pull her hand out. The window, which was half closed, suddenly opened, revealing an old woman with deep-set eye sockets, holding the girl's hand and dragging her out as if to take her life. Hearing Thuong's cry for help, Mr. Khan desperately tried to suppress his fear and rushed out, grabbed her arm and pulled her back inside. Thuong was terrified and cried out as if she had just come back to life from the dead. Mr. Khan trembled, looked up but could no longer see the old lady. He looked at every corner outside the window and main door but could not see the old lady's figure. It seemed that she had really left. Mr. Khan sighed, petted baby Thuong and said, "It's okay, my child. She's gone. Now go to bed. Tonight, I'll sleep out here and watch for her spirit to return." Thuong listened to Mr. Khan and obediently nodded and went into the room. That night, the old lady's figure kept lurking around. Sometimes I heard her mumbling in the yard, sometimes I saw her shadow flickering at the window or at the main door, as if she was blaming Mr. Khan. Mr. Khan couldn't sleep all night, and at midnight, the old woman collapsed on the porch, crying loudly. Mr. Khan was no longer afraid of her, but only felt pity. He approached the old woman who had collapsed, and whispered to her, as if he was talking to himself, because in fact the old woman's ghost didn't understand anything. She only cried instinctively, like a creature without a soul. Mr. Khan loved his mother so much that he was restless all night. The old woman kept pleading. "Khan, if you love your mother, then take the amulet off the door. She's very hungry and cold out here." Mr. Khan could not bear it, finally nodded and cried. "Okay, let me take the amulet off, but please have mercy on me and Thuong, don't hurt us," the old lady said in a pleading and apologetic voice. "I gave birth to you, how could I have the heart to harm you?" The old lady kept muttering. Mr. Khan immediately wiped away his tears and determined to take the risk. He stood up and directly snatched the amulet from the front door of the house. As if by magic, the talisman that had just been pulled down, even though there was no fire to ignite it, caught fire on its own. The fire was so hot that Mr. Khan had to quickly throw the talisman to the ground. The talisman burned for a while and then turned into ashes. When the talisman had just burned out, the poor old lady sitting on the porch suddenly transformed into a different person. Her face gradually became deformed with a red mouth full of blood, and her deep black eyes revealed. She rushed forward to strangle Mr. Khan, wanting to strangle him to death. Mr. Khan was terrified, because he did not think that the old lady would do such a thing. But he remembered what Mr. Lu said. The old lady was now a ghost of Lu Kui, so she was no longer herself. Mr. Khan struggled to push the old woman's hand away, but strangely, his hand kept pushing and pushing, but it ended up in an empty space. He could still clearly feel the old woman's tight grip, but he couldn't touch her. Her weak hands had terrible strength, wanting to strangle Mr. Khan until he suffocated. Mr. Khan's breath, vitality, and rosy complexion gradually faded away. He was slowly gasping for breath, because he was strangled to death by the soul of his biological mother. Boom! But in that moment of despair, suddenly there was a loud banging sound as the door was pushed open. A figure appeared behind the wooden door. It was Mr. Lu. Mr. Lu shouted in Chinese, his whole body fell forward, through cinnabar ink, and waved his hand to create a kind of mark and shot it towards the old lady. The old woman screamed out a horrible, horrible sound and then disappeared completely. Behind Mr. Lu, two more people, the assistant driver and the interpreter, also ran in. The interpreter pulled Mr. Khan, who was lying on the ground, up and explained. Mr. Lu knew that you would not be able to resist removing the talisman, so he changed the return time earlier. Luckily, we arrived in time. If we had not waited a little longer, your life would have been in danger. Mr. Khan took a deep breath to make up for the suffocating moments before. He turned to Mr. Lu and clasped his hands repeatedly to express his thanks. The next day, Mr. Lu woke up very early. He prepared a bunch of things, then ordered his assistant to drive and bring them along. Mr. Khan woke up the latest, brushed his teeth and washed his face, and only after a while did he talk to Mr. Lu. Mr. Lu looked at Mr. Khan and asked, "First, I want you to take me down to Tashua Abyss." Mr. Khan said nothing, thought for a long time before daring to speak. "That cliff is very high, you must prepare your climbing gear." Mr. Lu nodded and said, "Don't worry about that, I have a professional climber." Mr. Lu finished speaking and pointed to his assistant driver. It turned out that he was an adventurous mountaineer, very experienced in such trips, so Mr. Lu spent a lot of money to invite him to work for him. Mr. Lu's assistant driver, named Quang, was originally a Vietnamese living in China. But about 5 years ago, he returned to his country to work. This time, Mr. Lu came to Vietnam to find a great mountain climber, so he invited Quang to come back and help him in his mission of digging up the willow demon's body. Mr. Khan listened to Mr. Lu's story clearly, felt that all the conditions were met, so he nodded and said, "The conditions are all very good, but perhaps you should know. We can only go there at night, because only at night, based on the direction of the stars, can I predict the direction to that willow tree." Mr. Lu frowned and said, "No need, we have to go during the day. The willow demon cannot move during the day, so it's easy to knock its body up, but if we wait until night, it will be a big trouble. None of us know how capable the willow demon is. If we take the risk, we might risk our lives." Mr. Lu smacked his lips and then continued. "Furthermore, you don't need to worry about direction. You just need to describe to me the position of the constellation in the sky that goes in that direction. I will automatically determine the direction." Mr. Khan thought for a moment, then imagined and said, "I usually follow the Pleiades. If I follow that constellation I can naturally see it. If you have a way to determine it, then we don't need to wait for night, we can set off right away." Mr. Lu sneered and said, "So it's the 7-star formation. I had already guessed it, but I didn't expect it to be this easy. Alright, then let's start right away, but we have to hurry things up. Before it gets dark we have to dig up the woman's body buried under the willow tree, so I can seal the talisman into her body. Otherwise, when night falls, we will encounter great danger." Having said that, Mr. Lu urged Mr. Khan and little Thuong to quickly go with him. Thuong decided to stay home and did not want to go out. But Mr. Lu said that if she did not go with him, the old lady would most likely return. He would only temporarily chase the old lady away, not destroy her soul. So if the old lady returned and Thuong was alone, it would be very dangerous. The 5 people then climbed into Mr. Lu's car and headed straight for Tashua Canyon. Because they were traveling by car, it took them less than 10 minutes to arrive there. Kwong thoroughly explains the climbing rope and belaying technique to everyone. Everyone pay attention, this rope is different from a rope in that it has trailers that can reduce speed, allowing people to slowly descend without effort. However, when descending, everyone should add additional pins to that level for safety. To avoid the main pin on this when encountering an accident, it will not be able to withstand and will come loose. When a murder occurs, don't blame me for not warning you in advance. Everyone listened to Kwong's announcement and immediately paid close attention. The climbing ropes were tied securely to the cliff, and the 5 of them gradually lowered themselves down to the appropriate level. Next to the new climbing ropes were the old ropes that Mr. Khan and Mr. Duong had tied. The ropes had long since been worn away by time and broken, but there were still a few remaining ropes stuck to the cliff. After a while, all 5 people finally fell to the foot of Tashua Abyss. The scenery during the day was completely different from that at night. The vast green bushes spread out, giving off a strange beauty. While talking endlessly about the beautiful scenery of the wild mountains and forests, suddenly everyone heard Mr. Khan shouting, "Oh my God! Duong!" Mr. Khan screamed and ran to a place on the edge of the cliff. There was a human skeleton hanging from a rotten rope. The reason Mr. Khan could recognize it was Mr. Duong was because the clothes on the skeleton, although rotten, were still very familiar, and no more wrong than the cassette radio that had fallen on the ground right at the skeleton's feet. The radio was rusty, and had been dented in many places by the occasional layer of rocks and soil falling down and damaging it. Just the radio alone made Mr. Khan almost 90% sure that this was Mr. Duong. Because Mr. Duong always carried the radio with him, it was like a treasure, and with the clothes on the skeleton, Mr. Khan was 100% sure that this was his missing younger brother. For many years, Mr. Khan did not dare to go down to Tashua Abyss to find his younger brother, because he was still extremely afraid of the Willow Ghost. However, today, with Mr. Lu, a professional exorcist, accompanying him, Mr. Khan dared to go down here again, and accidentally discovered the body of his younger brother. While he was immersed in the pain of seeing his dead brother's remains, Mr. Khan had to endure a second blow. He was shocked to discover another skeleton with a shattered head, and a set of clothes that, although torn by time, were still recognizable. Mr. Khan shouted hoarsely, "Mom!" He ran to lift the old woman's skeleton, hugged her and cried, "It's your fault, it's all your fault for not listening to me. Actually, that day you heard me warn you, but you pretended not to hear. It's because of you that Duong and I ended up like this." Seeing Mr. Khan's sadness, everyone tried to encourage him. After a while, Mr. Khan suppressed his grief, then dug 2 graves for the 2 people's bones to bury them carefully. After finishing, Mr. Khan continued his journey with Mr. Lu's group to find the ancient willow tree, to dig up the willow's body to cast a spell. On that long journey, Mr. Lu took out a Bagua mirror to determine the direction, then walked in that direction with certainty. But behind the bushes, they gradually discovered that, as if from some point, there was something following them. Behind a bush, Thuong seemed to see something. She immediately shouted, "Dad, it looks like he's a wild man." Everyone looked in the direction Thuong pointed. And sure enough, a shaggy head of hair, with a tattered outfit of a person appeared. From a visual assessment, it seemed that he was not a savage. He was a normal person, except that he acted like a monkey, walked on all 4s, and had no intuition. Everyone was curious and felt strange, but Mr. Khan was different. As soon as he saw this person, he immediately had a feeling of suspicion. Mr. Khan exclaimed, "Sin, is it Sin?" The shadow of the man, like a wild man, hearing Mr. Khan say that, was immediately stunned, as if it had had this name a long time ago. It stood rooted to the spot, frozen in place. Mr. Khan explained, "It turns out that he is not dead, he is Sin, the local boy who was among the 14 people who went missing when they fell into this abyss that year." Mr. Lu also nodded and said, "Yes, I guessed right. He is not dead, it's just that his soul was sealed by the Willow Demon." Mr. Lu paused for a moment, then signaled for Kwang to go behind the jungle man named Sin. Then he continued speaking leisurely as if nothing had happened. The demon Lu killed his entire village just to cover up the clues. But he killed 13 people to eat, and this one survivor, he probably used it to replenish some of his yang energy when needed. Mr. Khan said. So do you have any way to help him? I feel so sorry for him. Mr. Lu nodded and said. Now I will capture him, then open the seal. Hopefully I will find out some information about that year. But I need your help, please go around and cooperate to capture him. Mr. Lu finished speaking, the girl translated. Mr. Khan understood and nodded in agreement. Okay. Then he gradually approached the young man named Sin. But the young man named Sin seemed to know his intention, he instinctively panicked and ran away. But when he turned around, he realized that he was too late. Kwang had already circled around behind him, tackled him and locked his arms, pinning his body to the ground. Mr. Lu quickly ran over and took out a talisman and pressed it against the young man's forehead. A flickering light burned the talisman. Sin gradually regained consciousness, his confused consciousness seemed to have regained its original personality. Mr. Khan happily said. Sin, you're not dead, I'm so glad. Sin said. Uncle Khan, why are you here? Uncle Duong and I have been looking for you. Mr. Khan sighed. Don't say any more, they're all dead. Then Mr. Khan asked Sin how he escaped. Sin answered honestly, feeling a bit embarrassed to say it, he said. That night I saw a girl, very beautiful, she kept seducing me, so I followed her, unexpectedly. Sin blushed and stopped talking after saying that, and everyone understood what was going on. Mr. Lu affirmed. That's the Willow Devil. Okay, if he's okay, let's continue. Kwang urged. Mr. Lu nodded, and the group continued to follow the direction the Bagua mirror had pointed. And by noon, they had indeed arrived at their destination. The land was gloomy, covered in clouds all year round. Even during the day, the scenery here was still not bright, it was still a dead land, and in the middle there was only a single willow tree. The only difference was that this willow tree's leaves were still green during the day. After walking a little further, the group immediately discovered an extremely horrifying scene. Human skulls appeared, hanging from tree trunks, looking extremely terrifying. Thuong could not bear this sight, so he turned around and threw up. Mr. Lu said. Everyone try to count, how many skulls are hanging on it? Kwang nodded and began to circle the large willow tree, counting meticulously. A moment later, he returned and reported to Mr. Lu. There are 91 human heads in total. Mr. Lu nodded and said. Just as I predicted, 13 people each time, 7 times total will have 91 heads. Just need to eat 9 more people, then it will have enough 100 lives to perform the ghost resurrection spell. These last 9 people, no longer important whether they are young men or not, just need human lives to make up the number. Therefore, it is very possible that the devil Lu will kill us. Mr. Lu finished speaking, paused for a moment and then reminded. Everyone must hurry, it's already noon, we only have a few hours left until dark. Everyone must help me quickly so I can dig up that body. Otherwise, when it gets dark, we will all become food for the willow demons. Mr. Lu, along with Kwang and Mr. Khan, circled around the tree several times to determine the appropriate method of breaking ground. According to Mr. Lu, the corpse of the willow ghost girl was buried in the middle of the tree trunk. But there must be some kind of mechanism nearby. So that when the great master Lu Ban Tang Ti Sin Kui comes back to life, he can open a mechanism, opening a path to the ground. Otherwise, even if he really was revived by that magic, he would still be suffocated in the ground. By dusk, through a series of methods, Mr. Lu had successfully recovered the body of the young woman who had been buried under the willow tree for hundreds of years. The body was placed in an airtight iron coffin buried very deep, and covered with precious medicinal herbs. Therefore, although it was hundreds of years old, it could not decompose and was still intact. When the body was brought up, Thuong was startled and terrified because the figure and beauty of this demon were exactly like hers. Mr. Lu said. No need to be surprised, because she's your previous life, a part of your soul has escaped and reincarnated. Mr. Khan approached Mr. Lu and asked. Now that we have dug up the body, what should we do next? Mr. Lu nodded and said. This spell is easy to break, because the willow demon is a virgin girl. So we just need to break her virginity and it's done. Hearing Mr. Lu say that, everyone frowned in disgust at this method. Who could do such a thing to break the virginity of a corpse, especially a corpse that was hundreds of years old? Mr. Lu saw everyone's gloomy faces, as if they were at a funeral, and immediately smiled and said. Everyone doesn't need to worry like that. In fact, there are many ways to break a girl's virginity, not just the way everyone thinks. Mr. Lu finished speaking, then widened his eyes, gritted his teeth, and directly inserted his index finger. Unexpectedly, it quickly penetrated deep into the corpse's vagina. A horrible stench emanated. The corpse seemed to have been stagnant for a long time, releasing its air. Then, like a balloon, it gradually deflated, and finally a beautiful girl with a plump body. Now, she was like a dried lemon, slowly turning into dried flesh, clinging to the bones. Everyone's eyes widened at Mr. Lu's actions. He took a towel, wiped the index finger he had just done clean, then threw the towel away. He said, Okay, the most important thing is to deal with the corpse. Now it's time to call the zombie back from the north. Although the willow demon has lost its corpse, it is not completely dead yet. We have to call the zombie back, then cast a spell to absorb its soul into the zombie, then burn it together, then it will be fine. Mr. Khan gently reminded. Must be the soul of some great master too. Mr. Lu nodded and smiled, saying, Yes. Mainly to destroy his soul. Mr. Lu explained further that from now on he would be coming here regularly to take care of the zombie altar, which would probably take quite a long time. Since then, Mr. Lu and Mr. Khan often went to the bottom of Ta Shua Abyss to let Mr. Lu perform the ceremony. The altar, which was more than 3 meters high, was built by Mr. Lu, with all kinds of votive offerings, rice, salt, and even live chicken. He repeated the sword dance ritual 3 or 4 times, each time praying to the night sky from dusk until dawn. During the day he slept, and at night he performed a ritual to summon the zombies. Explaining why there was a chicken in Mr. Lu's sacrificial ceremony. He said, The origin of the zombie is the descendant of the general god, a demon species among the 4 great divine beasts of the prehistoric era called Hong. Hong is extremely bloodthirsty, so when it dies, its body turns into an immortal and extremely tough one, so it is called a zombie, like a body of copper and iron, hard and bloodthirsty. Therefore, the descendants of the zombies later are all considered to be the descendants of the general god, similarly bloodthirsty like him. Using chicken blood to lure it is appropriate. Mr. Lu finished speaking, then took the still-living rooster, inserted his sword through its neck, and made a clean cut that caused blood to spurt out. The severed head of the rooster spurted out a long, strong stream of blood. Mr. Lu caught the blood flowing from the chicken's neck and let the hot red blood spray into his mouth. When he had filled a mouthful, Mr. Lu tilted his head back and spat out a long mouthful of blood, spraying it all over the wooden sword, making it very bloody. Mr. Lu repeated this action 3 times. Finally, he pointed his sword toward the north and muttered an incantation. Urgent as law, decree. The wooden sword in Mr. Lu's hand suddenly seemed to flash, making a profound sound. In the distant horizon, it seemed like a stream of deathly energy was responding to the sword's call. Mr. Lu called him over and over again 3 more times before finally putting away the peachwood sword. He said, Okay, that's all for today. We'll come back tomorrow to call the zombies. Having said that, Mr. Lu jumped down from the altar, signaling Kwang and Sin to carry the withered corpse of the willow demon back. Mr. Khan found it strange and asked, Why don't you continue calling zombies? Mr. Lu explained and answered as he walked. Zombies can only move at night, they can travel dozens of kilometers during the day. It's all the way north, so it took many nights to get here. Mr. Khan nodded in understanding after listening to Mr. Lu's explanation. 6 people buried the willow demon's body under the altar, and assigned one person to stay behind to guard the Willow Demon's body, taking turns to watch the body. Mr. Liu said that although this Willow Demon's magic had been broken, it could not come back to life. However, it still had the ability to kill people, and was very ferocious. A talisman had to be stuck on its body, then sealed in a coffin and buried under the altar. 4 more talismans were also placed on the 4 corners of the coffin lid. People took turns guarding the 4 talismans. If even one fell off, it had to be immediately reattached. Otherwise, once the Willow Demon's soul left, it would continue to harm people. The Willow Ghost normally stays inside its body during the day to avoid the yang energy. At night, it leaves its body to collect the essence of the stars, absorbing the yin energy to grow and nourish its body. Mr. Liu said that if he did not watch over the corpse, then after several nights, even if the Willow Demon did not harm anyone, it would still be able to recover the magic that he had broken by absorbing the air, but this process would take a very long time. Through a rough estimate, Mr. Liu said that it would most likely take the zombies more than a month to return to this land. From now until then, there will be exactly 36 days. During these 36 days, special attention must be paid. The talisman stuck to the 4 corners of the altar must not be allowed to fall off. The talismans on the lid of the Willow Demon's coffin must not be damaged or missing a single leaf. If even one of these things is violated, the disaster will be immeasurable. Not only can the Willow Demon escape its body and harm people, but the zombie will also return to the north, and it will never be able to be called back here again, because the last link to the corpse has been thoroughly used by Mr. Liu to call the zombie. The broken spell is similar to the only link being broken. At that time, there will be no more link that can replace it. The curse of the Luban sect will never be lifted. The Willow Demon's body cannot be burned, because it has been soaked in medicine, a type of water and fire medicine that prevents intrusion. After a period of time, it will be able to regenerate itself to revive the Grandmaster of the Luban sect. Listening to Mr. Liu's explanation, Mr. Khan understood many magical stories in the world. There are things that people cannot even imagine. For example, do gods, fairies, or demons really exist? Mr. Liu's answer was that they definitely do, because the Willow Demons are the clearest proof of their existence. As for whether gods and Buddhas really exist, Mr. Liu was not sure because he had never met them. When he cast spells, he often borrowed their names, but whether they really existed or not was very difficult to say. Only thing is, every time he used his name to perform magic, it was effective. The demons and monsters were all destroyed in a very miraculous way. There is a great master of the Luban sect who believes that the reason why demons and ghosts are formed is because of the accumulation of strange energy from heaven and earth. The reason why demons and ghosts can be destroyed is because they can summon the restraining energy in heaven and earth to eliminate them. As for the nature of immortals, they really do not exist. Similarly, a Taoist priest of the Maoshan sect also said that the reason why zombies can move is because the muscles are preserved intact when they die, and only need to be infused with a little bit of the right kind of qi to be able to use these muscles to move. It is because qi is a dead thing that zombies do not have intelligence. As for why zombies go crazy and randomly chase and bite people, it is simply because the corpse is infected with too much qi, causing the qi to enter the muscles in a chaotic manner. The qi is light, so when people are scared and run away, it also causes the qi to be sucked in, and thus the person is also chased by the zombies. These explanations are exactly the same as the phenomenon of will-o'-the-wisp. During the first 3 nights, the altar was guarded by men in shifts, so nothing happened. But on the 4th night, Thuong, who was assigned to guard the altar, did the most terrible foolish thing of her life. Thuong sat sadly, looking down at the tall ancient willow tree. The human heads had now been removed, and in their place were talismans hung in the exact places where the heads had been hung. On the altar, the red blood stains had dried up after Mr. Liu's last ceremony. Thuong opened her eyes and remembered the moment she saw the Willow Demon's corpse and felt terrified. Because that corpse strangely looked exactly like her, down to every hair, even to her facial features and every tooth. Thuong kept thinking about the image of the Willow Ghost's corpse and couldn't stop thinking about it. Mr. Liu said it was her previous life, so what exactly was her previous life's identity? Why was her previous life sacrificed as a living corpse to revive an old man? The pain in her heart made her have a crazy thought. She wanted to lift the coffin lid to see if the corpse really looked like her. She wanted to see it with her own eyes one more time. She wanted to look at the corpse to see what she looked like in her previous life. And so that thought, like a worm, gradually eroded her mind, making her act. Thuong ducked his head under the altar, looking towards the sturdy steel coffin placed neatly in the middle. Four talismans were arranged in a scientific order around the lid. The coffin did not have many patterns, but it had a drawing of some kind of creature. The lines formed deep grooves in a clear pattern, saluting towards the center of the lid. Thuong said to himself. Mr. Liu said that if the talisman falls down for a while, it must be repasted immediately. Well, why don't we open the coffin lid, crawl inside, and close the lid? It's not against the rules to hide in there and look at the body, the 4 talismans are still on there. Thinking to herself, Thuong thought her thinking was right, so she acted immediately. Thuong slowly crawled closer to the coffin, used all her strength to open the coffin lid to a hole just big enough for her to crawl through, then brought the flashlight hanging by her side. After getting into the coffin, Thuong carefully and meticulously closed the coffin lid as if it had never been moved. The coffin lid closed, Thuong was inside the coffin looking at the body. The body had withered, but the 5 senses still looked beautiful, exactly like Thuong. From the ears, eyes, nose, lips, everything was the same. Oh my, the 2 of them were like they were cast from the same mold, even their height and body shape were the same. The previous corpses had a foul smell, but now they were soaked in dry medicine in the coffin, so they had no smell at all. Thuong touched the corpse and felt it as if it were a part of her. She fondled and fondled the corpse with pleasure, not knowing that her arm had accidentally knocked off the amulet stuck on the corpse's forehead. After fondling and playing with the corpse until she was satisfied, Thuong turned the coffin lid to open a hole just big enough for a person to crawl through. Thuong crawled out of the coffin lid, not forgetting to quickly close the coffin lid. But as soon as Thuong crawled out of the coffin lid, a sense of horror arose. The corpse in the coffin suddenly opened its dry eyes wide. Its mouth curled up into a sinister smile. Thuong went outside and discovered that a talisman had been blown to the ground by the wind. She quickly put the talisman back in its original place, but in that short moment, a small streak of light flew into Thuong's forehead without her knowing anything. Thuong was still happy like that, watching the body all night until her turn was over. Then she left early and went home to change shifts for someone else to watch it instead. Time passed, everything continued as normal. But it seemed like something inside Thuong was awakening, causing her personality to change little by little. On the evening of the 34th day, Mr. Liu was performing magic, spitting chicken blood into the sky, then he frowned and shouted loudly. Great! Everyone turned to look at him with surprised and puzzled looks, waiting for an explanation. Mr. Liu immediately explained. I can already feel a very thick death aura on the horizon, that zombie is about to come here. Kwang heard that and immediately stepped forward and asked. Then it's time we invite Mr. Dao. The Mr. Dao that Kwang mentioned was Mr. Liu's master. This person had the best magic of exorcising ghosts among the living descendants of the Luban sect. Mr. Dao rarely took action, but the cases he took action on were all difficult to solve, almost certain to result in death. Or it was a very poisonous spell that had been lost, so one could invite him. Hearing Kwang mention Mr. Dao, Mr. Liu nodded and said, My master arrived in Vietnam yesterday, he will probably be here tomorrow night. Let's get ready. Then Mr. Liu put away his sword, left the altar and went down, instructing Thuong. Today it's your turn to look after the altar, remember to take good care of it, just one mistake and you'll go a mile astray. Thuong nodded and said. I see. Mr. Liu nodded and said. Alright, as long as you survive this ordeal without dying, you can learn the Luban sect's arts. Remember, the glory and wealth of the Luban sect will be endless if you learn its arts, and your family will be prosperous, so don't do anything foolish. After Mr. Liu finished speaking, He and the rest of the people left the land of the willow demons, leaving the Ta Shua abyss. Thuong bowed her head and said nothing. After the crowd had left, Thuong suddenly smiled coldly. She crawled back down to the altar and opened the lid of the iron coffin that contained the willow demon. She didn't even bother to close the lid when she crawled inside. Thuong crawled into the coffin and lay down next to the corpse. Suddenly, she slashed her palm with a knife. A stream of bright red blood flowed from her palm. Thuong adjusted her blood to fall right into the mouth of the dry corpse. She took care of it bit by bit as if she were feeding a child. The dry corpse remained motionless like a log. Thuong's blood flowed into its mouth strangely, but not a single drop fell outside. After letting blood flow into the mouth of the dry corpse for a while, Thuong crawled out of the coffin and closed the lid as if nothing had happened. Thuong's face grew more and more sinister. She suddenly stepped up to the altar, grabbed the wooden sword, and threw a drop of her own blood at the sword. Her hand suddenly pointed north. Her mouth muttered, "Urgent as law, decree." Early the next morning, Mr. Lu's group had arrived early at the bottom of Ta Shua abyss, bringing a lot of paper money with them. Mr. Lu said that these paper money were a type of spirit soldiers that could be used when fighting a zombie at a critical moment. Having paper money surrounding them could hinder its limbs, making it much weaker than its actual ability. The 5 of them headed towards the land where the giant willow tree grew. When they got there, they saw Thuong sleeping soundly at the altar. Mr. Lu sighed and wanted to blame her, but he came closer and covered her with a thin blanket without saying anything. Mr. Lu crawled under the altar and discovered that the 4 talismans were still intact, so he was no longer worried. He turned back to the altar and placed votive offerings of horses, soldiers, Guan Yu, Zhang Fei. All were famous figures from the 3 Kingdoms period. Someone asked, could he really control their souls? But Mr. Lu just smiled and said that the soldiers of the underworld have no clear form. The paper money is just the body for them to enter. The important thing is that the effigies are modeled after living characters. The more influential the characters are, the better they can scare away ghosts. Mr. Lu placed Guan Yu's paper money in the northeast to guard the northeast direction. He placed Zhang Fei's paper money in the northwest to guard the northwest direction. As for himself, he placed a sword stand pointing straight north to welcome the zombies. Just as Mr. Lu had predicted, the zombies would not arrive for another day. But the sky had just turned dark. Mr. Lu was immediately startled and pale with fear, because at some point, on top of a cliff dozens of kilometers away, he could see a silhouette jumping up and down on the mountain peak, coming this way. Mr. Lu cried out in fear. How is that possible? The zombies arrived a day early, and were even closer. The air was filled with the stench of corpses, and the starry sky was suddenly obscured by black smoke and dark clouds. Mr. Lu was sweating profusely. Mr. Dao had not arrived yet. If he fought the zombie alone, he would surely die. Mr. Lu suddenly looked at the peachwood sword in his hand and said again, "Not true." He felt very strange, so he licked the peachwood sword with his tongue and said with an even paler face, "Someone performed magic, calling zombies away even during the day. Who is it?" Mr. Lu shouted and asked. Mr. Khan did not understand and asked, "Didn't you say that zombies can only move at night? Even if someone casts a spell, how can they move during the day? If they move during the day, the zombies will be burned by the sun's fire." Mr. Lu shook his head and sighed, saying, "You really don't understand, this guy is a really skilled Luban master." He knew the location of the zombie from thousands of miles away. He knew the terrain it was going through, so he made it go into the dark forest to avoid the sun. That way the zombie could move during the day. Mr. Lu was speaking as if to explain, then suddenly he stopped and shouted, "I'm done." Then he hurriedly crawled under the altar and ran to the iron coffin. The 4 talismans were still sealed tightly, but Mr. Lu was still worried and immediately forced open the coffin lid. As soon as the coffin lid was opened, Mr. Lu could not help but let out an exclamation of "Oh!" Everyone ran to surround the iron coffin, shaking their heads and sticking out their tongues in disbelief. because the corpse that had been withered a few days ago had now become rosy and plump like a living person. Mr. Lu whispered in a strained voice. Someone used blood to revive it. Hello? At this moment, only a few kilometers away from the altar, the zombie howled horribly. Everyone was scared and surrounded Mr. Lu, clinging to his body, hoping that he would save their lives. He tried to suppress his fear, thought for a moment, and then said, "My master is almost here, hold on until he gets here, then we will all live. He will sense the smell of the zombies and run here, so there is no need to show us the way." After Mr. Lu finished speaking, he jumped up and rushed to the altar. He sprinkled a bunch of sticky rice grains around the altar, then cut a chicken and let its blood flow into his mouth and sprayed it onto the two paper effigies of Zhang Fei and Guan Yu. He said, "Everyone is not allowed to leave this altar. The sticky rice will temporarily prevent the zombie from entering. I'm going out to fight it." After Mr. Lu finished speaking, he jumped off the altar and quickly disappeared into the night. The two effigies of Guan Yu and Zhang Fei also suddenly moved and ran after him. At this moment, everyone had no idea what was happening outside. They only heard Mr. Lu screaming. They hugged each other, trembling like leaves, hoping that this would pass quickly. But man proposes, God disposes. Mr. Lu failed. He was covered in blood and ran back to the altar, panting. Blood flowed from his mouth. He jumped onto the altar and called Thuong to come closer and said, "I will teach you the art of Luban sect. You can temporarily learn a few spells to try to hold on and protect everyone. Here is the sword, take it and I will show you. This is a real iron sword, not a wooden sword, be careful not to get injured again." Mr. Lu handed the iron sword to Thuong without any suspicion. Thuong acted immature and took the sword, but when Mr. Lu just stood up, turned his head to act as a model to teach Thuong. Suddenly, a cruel look appeared in the corner of her eyes. The iron sword quickly swung down from Thuong's hand, cutting cleanly through Mr. Lu's neck, causing his head to fall off his neck and roll off the altar. Mr. Lu had a wide-eyed expression, as if he couldn't believe that she would be like this. Mr. Khan shouted, "Honey, why did you do that?" Thuong chuckled without saying anything. She just licked her lips with a beastly look, slowly walked to the edge of the altar, and wiped away the circle of sticky rice with her foot. In the distance, a hideous black shadow was jumping from the bushes towards this side. Its face was wrinkled, its hands stretched out in front with very long nails. Its 2 rows of teeth had protruding fangs dripping with blood. It was the zombie from centuries ago. Mr. Khan knew that things were not going well now. He shouted, "Everyone, run, this place is not safe anymore." The remaining 3 people heard Mr. Khan say that, as if realizing it, they were frightened and quickly ran out of the altar circle, each running in a different direction. But the zombie was so fast that the 3 of them had only been running for less than half a minute. They were already letting out horrible screams, their throats felt as if something was squeezing them. The zombie had killed them in just a few short seconds. Mr. Khan seemed desperate. He knelt down, fearfully looking at Thuong with tears streaming down his face. He asked, "Love, why did you do that?" Thuong did not answer, but just chuckled. Mr. Khan sighed, knowing his fate was over, so he closed his eyes and said, "Okay, then let me follow Uncle Duong, follow your grandmother." Mr. Khan bowed his head and waited for death. Then at that moment a voice rang out. "You wonder why, because she is no longer your daughter, but the Willow Demon." Mr. Khan opened his eyes and saw an old man with white hair and beard on the altar, holding a wooden sword and laughing. Mr. Khan asked, "Who are you?" The old man replied, "I am the master of that ignorant disciple." Mr. Khan happily said, "You are Mr. Dao, do you know Vietnamese?" Unlike Mr. Lu, who always needed a female interpreter to talk to Mr. Khan, this Mr. Dao, his master, could speak Vietnamese fluently. Mr. Dao nodded and said, "Yes, my last name is Dao. I was in the Liberation Army and lived in Vietnam for a while, so I understand Vietnamese quite well." Mr. Dao stroked his beard, did not continue speaking, but suddenly acted very quickly. He waved his hand and immediately brought down the entire altar. He waved his hand again and poked the willow demon corpse lying in the coffin. The corpse immediately screamed, its eyes widened, and then burst into flames. As soon as the corpse burned, Thuong immediately fainted as if the fire had just been extinguished. Mr. Dao swung his sword again, throwing the corpse towards the zombie. The zombie seemed to feel scared, it turned around and ran away, but it was too late. The willow demon corpse stuck to its body, catching fire and infecting it. The zombie was immediately surrounded by a fire and held miserably. It struggled in despair. After a while, both its body and the willow demon corpse were burned to ashes. Thuong fainted for a while and quickly woke up. She saw Mr. Khan collapsed on the ground, so she ran to help him, hugged him and cried, "Dad, I couldn't control myself just now, I killed someone." Mr. Khan also hugged Thuong and cried without saying anything. Mr. Dao put his sword away and explained, "That's the willow demon, not you. You have committed a crime against my Luban sect, so from now on you must follow me to learn martial arts to repay your debt. Let go of your father, from now on you no longer have the right to see him." Hearing Mr. Dao say that, Thuong nodded, resolutely let go of Mr. Khan. Then quietly went to stand next to Mr. Dao. Mr. Dao looked at Mr. Khan and continued, "You are also out of debt, your debt is the karma of greed. But you had to pay with much torment, from now on you can enjoy a prosperous life." Mr. Dao pointed to the willow tree and continued, "I know what is valuable, and because of it you committed evil karma. So I will let you cut it down and sell it to make money. From now on, just enjoy your old age and don't think about anything else." After saying that, Mr. Dao turned around and walked away, taking Thuong with him and disappearing into the night. From then on, Thuong never returned, and Mr. Khan had no news of her. But he listened to Mr. Dao and cut down the willow tree to sell, so he had a comfortable amount of money and became rich. Mr. Khan stayed single for another year and then took a second wife. His second wife thought that he was too old to have children, but God had mercy. In his late afternoon, his second wife miraculously got pregnant. Mr. Khan was lucky to have another child to continue the family line.